When Arthur chased after his white moonlight abroad, I begged him not to go, but he didn't even look back. A year later, when I got married, Arthur flew back. Seeing my wedding ring, the usually arrogant Arthur completely broke down. He forced a strained smile. "Emily, will you take it off yourself? Or shall I do it for you?" His voice trembled. "If you want a ring, I'll buy you one. Just throw this one away, please." I didn't invite many people to my wedding, just a dozen or so close friends and family for a meal together. My husband dotes on me. He took care of all the guest hospitality himself, so I wouldn't get tired, letting me chat with my best friend the whole time. Watching me get married, my best friend Lucy sighed with emotion. "I thought you'd wait for Arthur forever." I lowered my head and smiled faintly. "I thought so too." She asked, "Does Arthur know you're getting married?" I shook my head. "No, and there's no need for him to know." She paused. "I heard Arthur went crazy last night booking tickets, flying back overnight from America." I didn't say anything. He was in such a hurry, probably because his white moonlight had run away again. Just like before, when she got angry with Arthur and ran off to America, Arthur booked a flight right in front of me to chase after her. At that time, I was on my period, shivering under the blankets and still feeling cold. Trembling, I sat before him, watching his slender fingers tap decisively on his phone to book a flight for that very night. I gritted my teeth, still wanting to keep him. "Arthur, can't you stay?" Arthur looked at me with his dark, gleaming eyes and smiled carelessly. "Be a good girl and stay home. I'll bring you back a gift." He lifted my chin, lightly pecked my lips and tucked me in. "Do you want a necklace or a bracelet?" I didn't answer. Arthur loved giving jewelry. He'd given me so many pieces, but never a ring. He didn't give Grace many gifts, but each time it was a ring. I took a deep breath, looking at his handsome, lean face and pale complexion, still wanting to hold him back. "Can you really not leave?" Arthur's smile faded slightly as he patted my head. "You know what we are to each other." I froze in place, speechless. Arthur was the one I actively pursued to get back. He had only one condition. Our relationship couldn't be made public, especially not in front of Grace. To put it bluntly, I was just his backup option. I had absolutely no standing to stop him, even though we were already living together, and he had taken me to family gatherings. Seeing I had nothing more to say, Arthur smiled and kissed my forehead. "Be good. I'll bring you back a present." I lowered my head. "When will you be back?" He stood up and leisurely buttoned his shirt. "A few days." He probably didn't expect it at the time. This time his white moonlight wasn't going abroad to relax, but to study, which led to him staying with her for a whole year. I watched Arthur's tall, straight figure as he walked away and sighed. Perhaps sensing my unhappiness, Arthur turned back. "Before I leave, think if there's anything I can do for you. I'll do my best to fulfill it." I looked at his face and thought for a moment. "Could you help me find out about someone? His name is William, a war correspondent." Arthur's face darkened. "What's your relationship? If you can't explain clearly, I won't help." I pursed my lips. "My brother, from my aunt's family." Arthur's expression softened slightly as he nodded. "Wait for my news." He turned and left. I watched his retreating figure disappear, then took out a photo from my wallet. The photo showed a slender, handsome man who bore a striking resemblance to Arthur. I traced my fingers over the photograph. Arthur was truly such a forgetful man. I had told him, "I grew up in an orphanage. Where would I have an aunt from?" I had also mentioned that there was an older brother in the orphanage who always looked after me, and we grew up together. But he heard it and forgot. He never once doubted why I loved looking at his face so much. Only loving his face. 2. Arthur truly loved Grace. Even though Grace had been so inconsistent all these years, just unwilling to settle down, he also loved willingly. And I truly loved Arthur. That face of his, the face resembling William's. I've always felt grateful toward Arthur. He saved me from the depths of despair. When I met him, it had already been 3 years since I last heard from William. Many people said William was gone. I was like a walking corpse, devoid of life. Until I saw Arthur, my junior by 1 year. When I saw his face that resembled William's so much, I cried. I tried every possible way to get close to Arthur, being unconditionally good to him. Everyone knew I was Arthur's shadow, carrying his bags and coat, running errands for him, delivering messages when he quarreled with Grace, and helping him home when he was drunk. Perhaps I treated him so well that he could no longer ignore it. So on a night when he'd fought with Grace and was drunk, he pulled me into his arms. "Do you like me?" I looked at that handsome, lean face and nodded. From that day on, I became Arthur's secret girlfriend. If you could even call a backup option a girlfriend. This goodness lasted for several years. Arthur and Grace didn't work out, but the two of us ended up living together. Arthur would sometimes hold me and sigh, "Emily, you're the best woman to me. You don't even care about my money." I'd laugh and say, "Well, I wouldn't say no if you offered. But you don't spend." Arthur's phoenix-like eyes gleamed darkly as he stared at me. "You don't spend my money, or the jewelry I buy, or force me to make our relationship public." He said, "Sometimes I even feel like you're keeping me as a backup too." I tapped his nose and buried my laughing face in his chest. Backup or not didn't matter. Men are not made of grass or trees. We've walked through 6 years together. These 6 years meant everything to me. But Arthur thought differently. Arthur still loved Grace so deeply that when Grace called him drunk in the dead of night, he'd immediately throw on clothes to fetch her. Arthur used to leave without a word, never explaining anything to me. But later, he started giving explanations, with guilt written all over his face. I thought it meant I was becoming special in his heart. But I was wrong. He still chased after Grace and went abroad, leaving me no chance to ask him to stay. He was gone for a whole year. Actually, Arthur did come back once during that time. He was drunk and asked me to pick him up. When I arrived, he was sitting in a nightclub VIP room, video calling Grace. Seeing me arrive, he waved at me. "Emily, come here." He gestured to Grace to look at me. "Let me introduce you. This is Emily, my girlfriend of 6 years." Grace remained expressionless, but her eyes swept over me, lingering on my face for a few seconds. Then she laughed. "Arthur, have you changed your heart?" Arthur also laughed. "Yeah, why should I keep chasing your cold indifference when I have a gentle and virtuous wife?" Grace watched Arthur holding me and asked how long we had been together. I answered honestly, 6 years. Grace hung up the video call. The usually proud Grace was so distraught that she didn't even say goodbye. Arthur's arm around me suddenly stiffened. That night, Arthur had been holding me as we slept. He took a call midway, and when he returned, he kept kissing me while holding me tight. He didn't sleep all night, just kept watching me. By morning, his voice was hoarse. "Emily, we've reached the end." I hadn't slept all night either. I'd guessed as much. I heard Arthur take that call. Grace casually told him to break up, saying she'd be with him immediately if he did. I know I'm not as important as Grace. I nodded, not wanting to make the situation more awkward, turned my back, and wiped the corners of my eyes. Arthur hugged me from behind, so tightly I could hardly breathe. He whispered in my ear, "There's news about your cousin. He's not dead, just lost his memory and is abroad." My entire body froze. I turned around. "Can you bring him back for me?" Arthur kissed my lips one last time. "Yes, I owe you that." That same day, he boarded a plane to be with Grace. And I, a few days later, met William. At the best hospital in the country, the top specialists treated him. Soon his memory returned and he remembered me. William had been injured and lost his memory while rescuing a child in a bombing zone. When I woke up, he held me in his arms immediately. A gentle voice echoed in my ear, "I wasn't here for these 10 years, and I've let you suffer." Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. The emptiness in my heart was quietly filled at this very moment. For William and I had missed 10 years, and neither of us wanted to waste another decade. We got engaged soon after. William also asked me if I had fallen in love with anyone else during those 10 years, warning me not to make a hasty decision I might regret. Arthur's face flashed vaguely through my mind, but it vanished in an instant. I shook my head and smiled, saying no. I traced the scar on William's body from rescuing children in the war zone and repeated, no. Truth be told, before William asked me, I'd had several dreams, and Arthur appeared in all of them. In those dreams, Arthur looked at me with a cold smile and told me not to flatter myself. My heart still aches with bitterness. But as time passed, I never dreamed of Arthur again. Those 6 years seemed to have vanished with the wind. My best friend Lucy sometimes asks if I ever think of Arthur. I remained silent for a few seconds before shaking my head. "I hope he and Grace can be happy together," I said. "It's best if we just forget each other." At the very least, I was genuinely determined to leave him behind in my memories. But a few days later, while having dinner with William, I ran into one of Arthur's classmates. He spotted me from afar and came over with a greeting. "You bastard, why didn't you call when you came back?" After walking a few steps, he suddenly stopped, his face frozen in shock. William resembled Arthur, but there was a scar between his eyebrows left from the war zone. Their temperaments were completely different too. William lacked Arthur's carefree, playboy demeanor. And even more ruthless and composed, the classmate looked at William, then turned to me with shock and suspicion. "Emily, this." He thought for a moment. "Did you cheat on Arthur?" I shook my head. "We broke up." The classmate looked even more astonished. "But Arthur said you were still waiting obediently." I interrupted him. "This is my fiancé. We're getting married soon." He was stunned. Looking at our tightly clasped hands, he turned and hurried away while making a phone call. I looked up to explain to William, but before I could say much, he smiled. "It's all in the past. No need to talk about it." He smoothed my hair. "I couldn't expect you to wait 10 years just because I disappeared for 10 years. My eyes grew hot with tears as a sudden wave of grievance overwhelmed me. During those first 3 years when William was missing, I clung to my phone every day, waiting for a call. I never turned it off for 24 hours, and every unfamiliar ringtone would startle me awake. In the first year, I kept hoping the call would come, that someone would tell me William was just injured and coming home soon. In the second year, I longed for someone to tell me William was still alive. By the third year, I began fearing phone calls, yet couldn't avoid answering them. When Arthur appeared, I was officially diagnosed with severe anxiety and panic disorder. His face became the final lifeline keeping me alive. Being Arthur's backup wasn't without its humiliations, but I truly couldn't tear myself away from that face. Only by looking at him could I find the strength to keep living. So whether I loved Arthur or not, I didn't know. But I was grateful to him, so grateful that even when he let everyone mock me as a spare tire, I still cherished every moment of it. For these 6 years, Arthur has been a good man in my eyes, a savior who rescued me from dire straits. I had assumed I left a favorable impression on him too, that at the very least he'd remember me as understanding. Yet I never imagined he'd clench his teeth and call me a liar. 5. Arthur called me late at night. I rose gently, careful not to wake William. I thought he wanted to retrieve the many things he'd left at my place, but as soon as I answered, he spat out through gritted teeth, with a ferocity that seemed intent on crushing me. Liar. His voice was hoarse and low. Emily, you're a liar. You told me he was your aunt's child. You lied to me. He no longer wore that careless, playboy demeanor. He suppressed his anger, his voice even carrying a hint of grievance, like a child's grievance. I lowered my head and sighed. I'm sorry. I've mastered the art of apologizing. For 6 years, this was how I apologized to him. There were many reasons, like not staring at him too much in Grace's presence. It would upset Grace. Or not trying to hold his hand in front of Grace's classmates. For example, don't randomly call him when he's having dinner with Grace. Every time, I would apologize, staring at that face, obediently saying sorry. At first, Arthur would hesitantly pat my head like I was a child. Just do better next time. Later, he'd prop his chin on his hand and smile at me. You're so cute when you apologize. Later on, he stopped imposing so many rules on me. But my instinct to apologize hadn't changed, and I immediately blurted out, I'm sorry. Arthur paused, then said through gritted teeth, this time, an apology won't work. Emily, I'm really angry. I should have just let your lover stay in the war zone forever. Why did I go through all the trouble to put a cuckold's hat on myself? My face turned cold, yet he remained oblivious, still pressing me. Did he touch you? Emily, answer me. Did he touch you or not? I cut off his impatient voice. Arthur, stop talking about him like that. He's very important to me. Suddenly, there was silence on the other end. After a while, I heard the sound of something shattering. Arthur gritted his teeth and said word by word with a forced smile. Emily, you've never once said I was important to you. He said, remember this. You're still mine unless I say you can leave. I'm not yours. I corrected him with a frown. We've had nothing to do with each other since you went to America for Grace. Arthur was silent for a moment before asking softly, so you're getting back at me, is that it? He seemed to grow more resolute. You're with him to spite me, right? If I gave you a chance to reconsider. I frowned even deeper. Arthur, stop this. You and Grace finally got together. Just be happy. Arthur fell silent. His breathing grew heavy and rapid. After a while, he hung up without saying anything. Listening to the dial tone, I sighed. Arthur still hadn't changed. The mere mention of Grace brought him back to his senses. Once when he got drunk, he called me in the middle of the night to pick him up. I rushed out in my pajamas with just a coat thrown over, finding him completely wasted at the bar entrance. The freezing weather left my hands numb, yet he kept making a scene, refusing to go home. His friend, helpless, apologized to me before video calling Grace. Let Grace see what a mess you've become. Arthur suddenly straightened up, sober as if he hadn't drunk at all, and pulled open the car door to get in. His friend and I stood outside the car, staring at each other in silence. His friend's eyes were filled with embarrassment and pity. I'm sorry, I really couldn't help it. Only Grace can make him listen. I shook my head. It's fine, I don't mind. That day I made hangover soup for Arthur, and stayed up all night taking care of him. Yet he held me while calling out Grace's name the entire night. A voice in my heart kept asking me, Emily, do you really not mind? Then why are your hands and feet so cold? I sighed, forcing myself to snap out of the memories and stop dwelling on the past. I glanced at the bedroom. There was the man I loved most. What happened before doesn't matter anymore. The important thing is now, and I don't care anymore. 6. William and I began preparing for our wedding. I went to try on my wedding dress and ignored several calls from Arthur. But my phone kept vibrating incessantly. All the messages were from Arthur. In the past, he wouldn't have sent this many texts in an entire month. Emily, I haven't told you to leave yet. Emily, you'll regret this. What are you doing? Answer me. You never took this long to reply before. Unable to bear the noise, I grabbed my phone in the dressing room and hastily replied, I'm trying on wedding dresses. Stop messaging me. The phone fell silent briefly. Then it began vibrating incessantly without pause, as if the person on the other end had gone mad. Unable to bear it, I answered, Arthur, if you keep acting this crazy, we won't even be able to stay friends. He paid no heed, instead firing off rapid questions. What's so great about him? Emily, marriage and dating are two completely different things. He took a deep breath. Emily, listen to me. Do your parents even approve of you getting married? Why don't you wait until I come back to talk with them? I calmly interrupted him. Arthur, stop joking around. Silence fell on the other end. I said quietly, Arthur, I'm really getting married. We grew up together, understand each other completely, and are perfectly suited. Arthur tried to speak again, but I interrupted him. Grace won't be happy if you keep this up. He said nothing, only his breathing became uneven. I sighed. I've told you before, I grew up in an orphanage. What parents would I have? Why can't you ever remember that? After saying that, I hung up. Arthur never called back. Meanwhile, William waited patiently outside the dressing room, never asking why I took so long. When I finally came out, he held me in a long embrace, reluctant to let go. Emily, thank you for loving me. I hugged him back. Thank you too. We grew up in an orphanage, where every small kindness we received was etched into our hearts with endless gratitude. Unlike Arthur, the privileged young master who always got whatever he wanted, it's inevitable for him to lose his mind when his once obedient ex-girlfriend suddenly moves on and gets married without any warning. But I believe time heals all wounds. Eventually, he too will let go of his resentment and move forward. 7. But I overestimated Arthur's capacity for acceptance. A few days later, when I was about to get married and needed my beauty sleep every night, Arthur called me late at night again. He seemed drunk. Emily, You're something else. I was already extremely impatient, planning to block him. He spoke word by word, his voice hoarse and low. Back then, why didn't I think to look at the photo? Just one glance, and I would have known something was wrong. He sounded aggrieved and furious. But I didn't look at all. I even pulled him out of the war zone, treated him, and delivered him right to you. God damn it. Why did I only think to check the photo now? I put the fucking cuckold's horns on my own head. Arthur's voice trembled with rage. He lowered his voice, clearly struggling to control his emotions, yet unable to suppress its quiver. Emily, did you just use me as a substitute? I stayed silent.
So, did he?
After a moment, he ground his teeth and hissed, say something. Why won't you speak? Yet I suddenly remembered the beginning. When Grace had another suitor, Arthur posted a photo of my back on social media, wearing the latest luxury brand dress that Grace had wanted for the season. That was the only time I ever wore clothes Arthur gave me. I used to leave the tags on and keep the dress hanging in the closet, but Arthur insisted I wear it that day and took a photo of me. It was the first time he posted me on his social media, and it got so many likes. Quite a few people asked in the comments who I was. Arthur wrapped his arm around me as he showed me, casually calling me wifey. They're all asking about you. Arthur only called me wifey when he was in a good mood. He twirled my hair around his finger. When I told them you're my wife, all my buddies were so jealous. I smiled, but my eyes caught a new comment from Grace. Want to go to the music festival together? A moment later, Arthur glanced at his phone and paused. He flipped the phone face down and casually pulled out his credit card. Let's go buy you some bags. Then she stood up, put on her coat, and prepared to leave. Watching his retreating figure, I inexplicably blurted out, Arthur, can you not go? Arthur hesitated with his hand on the doorknob, then turned to smile at me. Feeling lonely? Then stay out a bit longer, buy some more clothes, pick out a few pieces of jewelry. He turned to close the door, but just as it was about to shut, he suddenly added, I'll be back soon, wifey. I watched the door slowly close, lowered my head, unsure of what I was feeling. By then, we had already transitioned from university to work, and Arthur had stopped calling me baby and started calling me wife. Deep down, I still felt something different for him. I stared at the credit card on the coffee table for a long time before finally placing it in the drawer, never touching it again. I never had such thoughts again. A few days later, Arthur returned. That WeChat moment with me and it was deleted at some point. A friend called to ask why he deleted his girlfriend's photo, to which he casually replied, oh, just some girl I saw on the street. Thought she looked nice, so I took a picture. Didn't want you guys getting the wrong idea if I kept it up. At that moment, I lay still in his arms, docile and gentle. He hung up the phone and kissed my ear. Such a good wife. After some thought, he still posted my photo on his social media, visible only to himself. Arthur stroked my hair. My wife is too beautiful to share with others. I looked at his face, smiled without speaking, feeling neither joy nor sorrow in my heart. Just like that credit card gathering dust in the drawer. Back then, I never once complained, like drinking water. Only the drinker knows if it's warm or cold. But now Arthur is filled with resentment. Emily, speak. Am I just a substitute or not? I sighed and decided to lay my cards on the table. What about me, Arthur? These 6 years of mine, what do they count for? Arthur froze. I continued speaking on my own. For 6 years, I never once complained in front of you, Arthur. And now you can't even handle a few days? Arthur's breathing sounded ragged. I sighed again, hung up the phone, and blocked Arthur on WeChat and my phone contacts. A clean break from those 6 years. William and I got our marriage license and held our wedding banquet in one smooth motion. I meticulously planned every detail, carefully selected my wedding dress, and gave myself the dream wedding I'd always wanted. From now on, I'm no longer alone and helpless. I have my own home and family. But at the wedding, my best friend Lucy told me Arthur had booked a last-minute ticket and was rushing back like a madman. I didn't really believe it. After all, he and Grace had finally gotten together. He wouldn't be so impulsive as to abandon Grace and return home. But I never expected him to actually show up. The Arthur in my memory was tall, handsome, and exuded nobility. Yet the Arthur before me now was pale-faced and haggard, holding a jewelry box, silently watching William and me. Rather than looking at me, his gaze seemed fixed more intently on William.
He startled me.
Arthur looked at William, then at me, and crooked his finger at me. Just as William went to attend to his colleagues, fearing Arthur might cause trouble, I rushed over to him and pleaded softly, please don't make a scene. This wedding means everything to me. I can't afford any mishaps. Arthur's face darkened. Though I was begging him, it seemed only to provoke him further. He glanced at William in the distance. Emily, between the two of us, who resembles whom? I froze for a moment, not quite understanding what he meant. Arthur asked again. Darling, between him and me, who's more like the substitute? He called me darling, as naturally as if we were still together. But he only used to call me wife when he was in a good mood, and his good moods were always related to Grace. I'd rather he called me Emily with my full name. My expression turned cold. Arthur, I'm not your wife. I pointed at William. I'm his wife, the legally certified kind. Arthur stared at me without saying a word, his face turning ashen. I began to regret speaking so bluntly. Coming from aristocratic upbringing, being confronted like this might provoke him to do something reckless. I froze in place, wondering how to get rid of this unwelcome guest, when I heard William calling my name again. My heart was filled with unease, though I dared not show it. My mind consumed by Arthur's icy expression and the uncertain fate of my impending wedding. William seemed oblivious as he pulled me into his embrace, gently soothing my anxiety. Don't wander off, or I might lose you. He patted my shoulder reassuringly. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I leaned against William's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. The uneasiness unexpectedly vanished, and I nodded with a smile. Yes. William lowered his head to peck my lips, but I wrapped my arms around him and kissed him back. As long as William was here, what did it matter if the wedding went smoothly or not? With William by my side, I fear nothing. I kissed him deeply and passionately. When the kiss ended, I realized Arthur was gone. Without the scene I had anticipated, he had quietly slipped away. Lucy said Arthur hurried away, as if fleeing from some wild beast. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You've never smiled at me like that. Lucy kept gesturing beside me. Arthur seemed really shaken. I've never seen him so flustered before. He even stumbled. What's gotten into this young masterson? I shook my head without saying a word, clinging to William's arm, unwilling to let go for the longest time. In childhood, we relied on each other for survival. In youth, we pledged our hearts to one another, and now we've finally become husband and wife. What happened to others doesn't matter. What matters is, I'm with the one I love. 9. When Arthur left, he asked Lucy to give me the ring. Lucy sneered. Now you know to buy a ring? What were you doing back then? Lucy genuinely didn't care much for Arthur. Lucy had always been frustrated by my relationship with Arthur, like watching unpolished steel that refuses to become a fine blade, yet she could do nothing about it. Arthur was extremely generous with me, showering me with necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and brooches, never repeating the same piece. But there was never a ring. During a meal together, Lucy jokingly asked Arthur when he would give her a ring. Arthur made a call, and soon after, his driver delivered a jade necklace to me. Lucy trembled with anger. I said a ring. After all these years with Emily, doesn't she deserve even one ring? Arthur rested his hand on the back of my chair, his body language suggesting he had me wrapped around his finger. Crossing his legs with an air of nonchalance, he quipped, She'll get hers eventually, what's the rush? He tilted my chin up with a playful grin, promising, within 10 years, I'll put a ring on your finger. I lowered my head with a faint smile and said nothing. Suddenly, I really miss William. William wouldn't casually make promises to me with a cheeky grin. No matter how similar the faces may be, if it's not the same person, it ultimately isn't. After that meal, I intended to distance myself from Arthur. I stopped answering his calls, ignored his WeChat messages, changed my door lock passcode, and never went to his place again. But Arthur's stomach trouble flared up again within days. He video called me, his face pale and haggard. It suddenly struck me, had William looked this gaunt before he went missing in the war zone? Against Lucy's disapproving glare, I found myself powerless to resist, and went to see Arthur anyway. Arthur's apartment was littered with empty liquor bottles. Heaven knows how much he'd drunk during this week I'd avoided him. I sighed as I cleaned his house, made congee, did laundry, peeled apples, and nursed him back to health. Arthur held my hand and said, Don't avoid me. Emily, I'm not lying to you. I'll really buy you a ring within 10 years. He gestured with his hands, a diamond this big. I laughed and asked, Then why not now? Arthur fell silent. After a while, he said quietly, Right now I have an obsession to resolve. He pulled me into his arms, making me lie with him as we listened to his rapid heartbeat. Emily, I'm not lying to you. Wait for me 10 years. I looked at his face without speaking. Arthur held me tighter, as if afraid I might run away. Then it settled. 10 years. I pressed my face against his firm chest, listening to his heartbeat. The heartbeat never lies. On our wedding night 10 years later, William and I barely slept. Early the next morning, while William was still asleep, I blushed as I went downstairs to dispose of those used little umbrellas. Just as I stepped downstairs, I saw Arthur. He stood beside the Ferrari, his chin covered in stubble, eyes bloodshot, with a scattering of cigarette butts at his feet. Who knows how many he'd smoked? He glanced at the transparent trash bag in my hand, then turned his face away, refusing to look any longer. His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. Emily, I waited all night, watching your lights go out. All his former pride had vanished. His gaze dodged the trash bags, but couldn't escape the red mark on my neck. The proud young master of the Shin family stared at my neck like he'd lost a cherished treasure, his eyes rimmed red. He rasped desperately. Emily, I'm sick. It hurts. Back then, I would have dropped everything to take care of him when he said that. I'd cook for him, peel apples, feed him medicine, check his temperature. But now, all I can say is, go buy some medicine. Arthur swayed slightly, his eyes growing even redder. Arthur came from a wealthy family, and fearing he might be kidnapped, his parents sent him to learn martial arts from a young age. He grew up enduring falls, blows, and injuries, toughened through hardship. What he took the most pride in was being the only son of a rich family, yet never acting spoiled or pretentious. But now, a single tear rolled down his cheek, yet he didn't wipe it away. He just kept looking at me. Emily, the truth is, seeing you smile at William made me think a lot. I could treat you just as well as he does. He closed his eyes and gritted his teeth, as if struggling to utter something unbearably difficult. Even if I'm just a substitute, can't substitutes get promoted? Emily, I can't accept you being like this with someone else. I was somewhat speechless and shook my right hand. A wedding ring adorned my finger. The diamond wasn't large, but it was custom designed with meticulous care. Arthur's face turned even paler. Emily, take it off. Will you do it yourself? Or shall I help you? He pleaded hoarsely. I'll buy you any ring you want, as big as you like. Just throw that one away, please. I shook my head. I can't, Arthur. This is my wedding ring. I looked down at the ring. William bought it for me. I love it dearly. Arthur choked up. Don't say such things, Emily. It hurts me. It really hurts, I sighed. I bore no resentment toward Arthur. After all, that face had helped me through my darkest days. I too wanted Arthur to let go of the past and move forward. I hesitated, wanting to offer him some advice, but when I looked up, I saw a figure that astonished me. Grace had arrived. Normally so polished and beautiful, her complexion looked unusually terrible. She stared at me in disbelief, then turned to Arthur. Arthur, I refuse to believe what people told me, that you broke up with me in the middle of the night and booked a flight home. All for her? Her gaze fell on the wedding ring on my finger, as if she'd been insulted. She's so plain-looking and married. You left me for her? Grace looked furious. There was a time when Arthur would cross half the globe just to chase after Grace, after a single angry word from her. But now, he didn't even turn his head, acting as if she wasn't there, and said to me, Emily, I really can't live without you, truly. I can't sleep. I haven't slept properly in days. He looked utterly haggard. Please come back, Emily, my love. I'll change everything. I won't even glance at another woman again. His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. A stand-in can become the real deal. Marriages can end in divorce. I swear I'll change, please. I opened my mouth, momentarily stunned into silence. I'd never seen Arthur like this. Never. The proud eldest son of the Shin family, even during all those years of strained relations with Grace, had never begged her like this. Grace was also stunned. Her face flushed red and then turned pale, until she finally threw out the words, Don't you regret this? I won't give you a second chance, before turning and running away in tears. Arthur didn't even look back. I reminded him, Grace is really gone. But Arthur reached out to pull me closer. I never planned to stay with her long term. She was just an obsession. When it comes to marriage, there's no one else in my mind but you. Arthur. I rubbed my temples and interrupted him. Afraid that William might wake up and not find me, I decided to lay my cards on the table. Actually, I didn't always see you as just a substitute. There were moments when I felt something too. How could I not? 6 years of whispered intimacies and shared warmth. How could anyone remain unmoved? Arthur's eyes flickered with a sudden brightness. I sighed, but it was you who pushed me away, Arthur. Don't you remember? Every time I was about to fall for you, you chose Grace. I smiled bitterly. It was you who pushed me away. You kept reminding me that William would never treat me like this, that you could never replace William. The light in Arthur's eyes dimmed. He struggled to say, I can change, Emily, I'll change. I shook my head to interrupt him. Arthur, you don't love me. You just can't accept someone not loving you. It was Grace before, and now it's me. I pointed to my heart. But I can't keep entangled with you anymore. This place now belongs to my husband. There's no room left for you. The last glimmer of light in Arthur's eyes suddenly went out. I didn't say anything more, just walked past him and went home. As I reached the building entrance, I suddenly noticed William standing there quietly, unsure how long he'd been awake. Panic instantly gripped me. You heard everything. William reached out and pulled me into his embrace. Don't panic. He patted my back. Arthur called me and told me about you too. He asked me to give you up for him. What did you say? I looked up in surprise and asked. I brought him back home and repaid him double the money he spent on my treatment. And by the way, I sent him a wedding invitation. Well, I couldn't speak anymore. I asked how Arthur had found our wedding venue. William, he truly knows how to destroy both body and soul. 11. I didn't know when Arthur had left. I had no time to care about anything else. I was busy preparing for my honeymoon with William. On a beautiful sunny afternoon, William and I arrived at an island for our honeymoon. Under the blue sky with white clouds, by the golden sand and azure sea, with a gentle breeze blowing, William and I blissfully closed our eyes, basking in the sunlight by the shore until evening, when we returned to our seaside wooden cabin. This was the very cabin I had told Arthur I wanted to stay in years ago, but we never found the time. Later, when William heard me mention it, he immediately booked a room and decided to bring me here for our honeymoon. Standing by the window of the cabin, I wanted to gaze at the night sea, but instead spotted a familiar figure sitting on the beach in front of the neighboring cabin, drinking beer. He was all alone, surrounded by empty bottles. I pursed my lips, closed the window, and before I could even draw the curtains, William came over and embraced me in a passionate kiss. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Arthur's solitary figure on the beach, tilting his head back repeatedly to drink, while William carried me off to the bedroom. At dawn, when I got up for water, a glance outside startled me. Arthur was still on the beach, motionless. Alarmed, I rushed out and crouched to check his breathing. Thankfully, he was alive. I patted my chest in relief and was about to leave when Arthur suddenly grabbed me, his eyes snapping open. Those once spirited eyes, now glazed with drunkenness, filled with sorrow and helplessness, gazed quietly at me in the morning sunlight. He pleaded hoarsely, Emily, can I just hold you one more time? Just one hug, just one. I shook my head, withdrew my hand, and stood up. I'm married, Arthur. Arthur was drunk beyond reason, his laughter mingling with tears as his voice rose above the crashing tide. But goddammit, Emily, I can't let you go. It's not about unrequited love like you said. It's about loving without realizing. Emily, my love, give me one more chance, please. I swear I'll never take you for granted again. I paused mid-step, then turned back. This endless back and forth couldn't go on. Better let him give up completely. My return seemed to rekindle Arthur's hope as he looked at me with eager anticipation. I lowered my head, took out my phone, pulled up a photo, and silently placed it before his eyes. It was a picture of a pregnancy test. 2 clear lines. "I'm pregnant, Arthur." Arthur froze. After a few seconds, he violently pushed his phone away as if shoving aside a venomous snake, refusing to look at it for even a second longer. Not a single word could escape his lips. I stood up, looking down at him, and returned the exact words he'd used when breaking up with me. "We're done." With that, I walked back to the wooden cabin. Dead silence followed behind me. Later, I completely forgot about Arthur. William and I built a lively little life together, nearly forgetting all that had happened before. 10 months later, I got pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl. At our daughter's 100-day celebration, William proudly carried her around, grinning from ear to ear. I sat watching William with our daughter, feeling warmth spread through my heart. A banquet hall server approached with an exquisite gift box. "Excuse me, a gentleman just asked me to deliver this to you." I wondered if it might be a gift from William's friend for the baby's 100th day celebration, so I thanked them and accepted it, then proceeded to unwrap it. Inside were 2 items. One was a gleaming golden lock pendant. The other was an enormous pigeon's egg-sized ring. I recognized that ring at once. Lucy leaned in for a closer look and gasped, "Isn't this the ring Arthur gave you at your wedding? He asked me to pass it to you, but you refused it and I had to return it to him." I stood frozen, speechless. After a moment's daze, I grabbed the gift box and ran out after him. She asked, "Does Arthur know you're married?" "No, he doesn't." Lucy chased after me and sighed, "If he had been like this earlier, you two wouldn't have." I shook my head and smiled. "What are you thinking? There aren't that many what-ifs in life. What's missed is missed. There are no ifs and no medicine for regret." I returned to the banquet hall, looking at my husband and daughter, feeling all the more grateful. William came over and hugged me, asking, "Is there something on my face? Why do you keep staring at me?" I shook my head and leaned into his embrace. "I'm just glad I didn't miss out on you. No regrets. My true happiness." The end.